All right.
So that's it. That's Zoids in a complete nutshell. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Enjoy your day.
No. So welcome to the Zoids Forgotten Century panel. So the reason that I decided to title it that is because Zoids is actually a very long-running mecha franchise that, for all intents and purposes, is forgotten according to the Western audience. Once again, so now that everybody's in the room, show of hands if you were introduced to this franchise with the Toonami era anime. Okay, so mostly everybody in the room, not surprising. I want to do a quick little experiment really quick. I want the audience members to guess what year Zoids as a brand was debuted.
1980 something.
No, I want to have somebody raise their hand. I'll point to you, have you guess. All right, I'm biased. Go ahead.
1986.
Close. Green shirt.
1995.
Nope. Black shirt way in the back.
91.
No. Mask over here. Far back.
Me?
Yeah.
Not 1980, 89.
No. So it is. Yeah, we'll go through and give everybody a chance to guess. Blue mask.
I was going to say 1985.
Closer. So white coat.
82.
There we go. So 1982 is actually when Zoids was invented as a brand.
And look how pretty they were.
Yeah. So Zoids is actually a mecha series almost as old as Gundam, and so
By like a handful of months, honestly.
well, by a few years, because Gundam was 79 and Zoids is 82, so Zoids is older than Transformers. That's at least true. And so most people don't know that, and so we wanted to do a panel that kind of goes through the entire history of the franchise and talks about a little bit of everything. And so we'll go ahead and do a quick introduction and kind of talk about who we are and why we decided to do this. So my name is Clinton Bradley, and I also discovered Zoids with the Toonami era anime. And this whole thing is your fault, because exactly 10 years ago on Halloween of 2011, you were at my Halloween party, and we were talking about the Zoids GameCube game, and because we talked about it so much, I was convinced that later that week I would start doing a Let's Play of that GameCube game, and I found a massive audience of hardcore Zoids fans lying dormant on the internet that needed to be spoken to. And so fast forward 10 years later, I have this YouTube channel dedicated to Zoids, and I make Zoids content every month. And so Zoids went through a period of complete, just nothing, no new content or anything until 2018. And now it's they're actually doing something with the franchise right now, and that's super exciting for this old, obscure series that's kind of dead. So I'll let you go ahead and...
So I'm Brad Lundeen. Usually, if you'll see me, my cosplay handle is Ortega Malice. That's usually how you'll find me on most places online. Like I said, so that was our big intro, was 10 years ago, lots of Zoids. I've always been really big into model kits in general, and my grandfather that actually got me into model kits actually bought my first Zoid, which I still own, and it is ugly. I look back at it and go, I can make so much better model kits now, and I'm happy for it, but it's just it's sentimental at this point. And that poor Command Wolf legs, if you look at it wrong, will fall off. And I'm I think I built this right, but there's got to be things that are wrong, because I've literally dusted it slightly and it just falls apart. I'm I've rebuilt this same kit and it doesn't do that. But to say the least, a lot of my Zoids are going to slowly become his channel, because again, my Okinawa people have a ridiculous amount of ability to find Zoids, and I've got probably tens of thousands of Zoids in my house now, which you would think would be a lot. It's not as many as you think, because I'm unfortunately getting to the point of it's lots of money to get one figure.
Yeah.
So especially now that I'm talking to a lot of people in the Philippines.
Yeah.
The Philippines is where to go if you want to get Zoid kits. It's insane.
Yeah,
how many kits they've got.
I don't know if maybe the Philippines was a test market for some of these kits, but they have the biggest and most loyal Zoids fan base of anywhere in the world, from what I've seen. And there are people over there that have absurdly huge collections. And if you guys want to connect with some of the people that buy and sell these kits or that are expert model builders, Zoids Collectors Group on Facebook is a good way to go, and they also have a Discord server that is extremely helpful. And I will say as well that the Zoids community and fan base is one of the nicest, most chill, accepting communities. If you have anything to say about Zoids, they want to hear it. They're no stakes whatsoever.
And they love new people showing up because they will absolutely love to talk about how to build them, how to properly clean them, because that's one of the biggest things nowadays is people that find the older kits is most of your white pieces are now yellowed. They've got like a dozen techniques on how to potentially fix that, and they are some of the just coolest people to talk to. And I mean, you will have hour-long discussions talking to these people about one or two model kits, and especially if you find a old rare model kit, I mean, you'll go to town with a dozen people all across the world just going, this is fantastic, they love it. Like, the fandom is just beautiful on the Facebook for it.
So at the end of this, we're going to hopefully go through the presentation with enough time to open it up for questions. And what we're going to do for questions is we want you guys to come up to the where the projector is, ask your question, give us your name. We're going to write it on the back of one of these raffle tickets, and then put them in the non-specific anime chalice. And then we will randomly raffle off one of these actual Zoids to give you guys, and I'll talk about what they are towards the end. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into our little history lesson. So this ugly wind-up elephant thing you see here.
It's the elephant at Mark 1.
Yeah, so Zoids was actually introduced in 1982 with a Tomy toy line called Mechabonica, and this didn't do very well in Japan. And so they rebranded it and tested it in the United States and called it Zoids. And so that is the brand we often refer to in the community as the OAR line, or Original American Release. And these kits are very, very simple. They're all wind up, but there are some characteristics of them that you will see throughout the rest of the franchise. The cockpit is that signature thing. You got the rubber caps, you got the wind up motor, and you get the little pilots that are essentially exactly the same. But I mean, I can't think of anything more 80s than robot dinosaurs in space. That is the most 80s thing I've ever heard. So, next slide. This is what an OAR Zoid looks like. So you can see they just kind of rebranded the packaging to Zoids and released them in the United States as a test market. Didn't do very well over here either. Go to the next slide. This is an example of a few of those early kits. This is an anniversary box you can get in Japan.
You can, and it's really expensive.
Yeah.
If you find this unbuilt, fully, because they actually separated it out, if you get that's fully intact, I mean, you're talking 4 digits in this thing, potentially.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it, even in not amazing condition, if it has all of them in that, I mean, it is insane how expensive that thing is. Because one of my friends on the Facebook page found it. And I'm like, you're in the Philippines, right? He's like, yeah, why? No reason. Of course you got this hidden in your just giant Zoid closet.
Yeah.
Like, he keeps, like, every week he just goes back to it and goes, hey, buddy, you want to look at this? No, because I know I'm not going to be able to afford it.
Yeah. Next slide. So in 1983, they released the second wave, and what they would do with this wave is they would introduce some highly more complex kits that would have some battery-powered motors in them, and they would introduce a storyline to go with Zoids. So this is the line we refer to as OJR, or Original Japanese Release. This is when they rebranded, they took the actual Zoids brand and properly released it in Japan with the battle story. This is where we famously get the conflict between the Helic Republic and the Xenobus Empire, not to be confused with the Guileless Empire we had in the anime. And this is where a lot of those iconic Zoids that you've seen in the anime first came from, like the Command Wolf, the Shield Liger, the D-Bison, the Saber Tiger, etc. Those kits originally came from the early 80s. So if you built one of like the Hasbro motorized model kits, like the D-Bison or the Saber Tiger or the Red Horn, you built the exact same model kit as what they would have gotten in Japan in the 80s. Which I think is just a testament to how high quality they were, because we never noticed as kids. Like, we were like, this thing looks old and junky. Like, we just thought it was cool.
Until you get one now, and I had the problem of it was unfortunate because it's a rare kit that's difficult to find, and I built it. All 4 of this Blade Liger's legs broke off.
Yeah.
And like, not like fell off, like the pin broke on the same spot on all four legs. And I'm like,
Yeah, the plastic.
what is this? Like, it is the most fragile thing I've ever seen in my life. And I have that command wolf that's legs fall off. Like, at least theirs fit back together. This thing I had to like glue, and I'm so sad because it's such a good kit.
The Gogulus has metal weights in it. It has like a lead weight in its head and in its tail. And because the counterbalance is so heavy, the pin that holds the tail in is infamous for breaking or whatever.
And that's the same thing. So me and him both actually bought one of our Gogulus from the same guy because he had some spares. And that was like the number one selling point that he would tell people is its tail actually is connected.
Yeah.
Because if I had a picture of it, I mean, it is literally this tiny, tiny little screw piece that just sits on top of a connector. And that houses the entirety of the tail where the balance of the kit is. If you don't have the tail on the Gogulus, it will not stand up because of the metal plates in it. And the tail at the very end has a metal plate in it. So it's already way off balance and weighted. So it's like you move it wrong as you're trying to adjust where it's being set, and it will just snap that tail off.
He's a hefty boy.
He's big.
We have a quick little video to show you guys in regards. You can't find it? It's shoot.
I feel really bad. Like that's what I was looking for while we were waiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had we don't have Wi-Fi, do we? You're not tethered, are you?
No, I don't have any Wi-Fi.
Okay, never mind. There's a really hilarious video that was a series of commercials made in the late 80s that is very much 80s tokusatsu kind of material, or like Godzilla type material, where they have like the Zoids model kits walking on like a set with like sand, and it is super 80s and it's really cool. We wanted to show you a clip of that, but it's easily accessible on YouTube. Just look for Zoids 1989 commercial, and it's like a 10-minute compilation of all of them. There's also a shot of them like using pyrotechnics to simulate a battle and blowing up like several $1,000s of kits.
Yeah. Like that was the one scene I wanted to show you guys. I'm like, hey, look, that's like 3 Death Swords and like a couple dozen other kits that I'm like, if this actually was them blowing this up, I mean, that's thousands of dollars of kits that they just dropped for a commercial.
For marketing. So now the Zoids lore has more or less been established. So in 1984, you have the...
Oh, I closed it. Sorry. Again, these contacts suck. Boop. There we go.
Okay, so we got the what we refer to as OER, which is Original European Release. This was the version that a lot of people got in the United Kingdom, which is actually fairly successful. There's a lot of people that live in the United Kingdom that still have these kits to this day. But this came with a Marvel comic series that featured a Spider-Man comic and a Zoids comic together. Has anybody read this?
It's actually not bad.
Okay, nobody has read this. I'm not surprised in the slightest. I own the entire thing, and it's great.
He bought it before I could.
Yeah.
He found the guy selling it. I was like, dang it.
Yeah, so it's not a great comic, but it does some really interesting things with the lore. So it takes place on, like, you guys remember in the anime there's that red moon above Planet Z. So it takes place, like, and theoretically on that. And it's a little planet called Zoid Star. And the Zoids are more or less sentient in this. And there's like a mutation that takes place where you get these mutated Zoids that create their separate faction and branch off. And they all have different names in this too. So the leader of the blue Zoids is the Gogulus, which is called Zoidzilla, as you can see right here. And the leader of the evil red mutant Zoids is Redhorn, known as Redhorn the Terrible in this. And all of them have fancy names. Like the Iron Kong is called Gore the Lord Protector. The Pteramander is called Crack the Prince of Darkness and stuff like that. What is that? Okay, so you could probably read those online, probably in the Iron Bible as well. But it's actually pretty easy to find OER kits online from people that, it's kind of like looking for 80s Transformers in a way, because there's actually like a sample size of people that own them who had them as kids, unlike trying to import some of the other vintage kits. So then they tried once again to reintroduce the brand to the US, and they retitled it. So this was Robostrucks, and this introduced some of the more complicated kits from the OJR line back into the US market and rebranded them a little bit. They're mostly the same. Did anybody have one of these as a kid? Nobody? Okay, not surprised.
As an adult, I do now. I actually
Yeah.
meant to bring it, so I found it in one of our used stores up in Chattanooga, and they had the Triceratops Robo-Struck. So I'm like, I don't even care if this doesn't match anything else I own in the house, but I'm buying this.
Yeah, and once again, you're in the mid 80s now, and again, robot dinosaurs are pretty much everywhere. So I don't think this brand once again did particularly well, but they are possible to find. So in the mid 90s, I think it was 1995, they tried it again, and we got a sequel to the European line, which they called Zoids 2. And a sequel to the American line called Technozoids. And I actually found a hilarious picture of it's a black and white photo of people shopping at Toys R Us, and I was like, oh, the 90s, oh, retro, don't you miss the 90s? You're so nostalgic about the 90s. And it was people shopping at Toys R Us looking at Power Rangers toys. And there is a Technozoids kit right there in the frame on the shelf that nobody's looking at.
No, they're looking everywhere but that one piece.
Yeah, and which was kind of disappointing, but that brings us to, there was another low point after that, but they finally rebooted the series once again in 1999, and they finally got it right. And this brings us to the first ever anime Chaotic Century, which everybody in the room has seen, right? Show of hands? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. This is what I think we would consider to be the best anime of all of them. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty well, yeah.
It's probably the best in terms of story. The series that followed was a little less serious and did not have the same level of like melodrama. But for some silly reason,
It's the same thing of like Gundam Wing versus G Gundam.
Yeah.
I love G Gundam because you don't have to care about what's going on until the last like 3 episodes. Everything else before that is just punch the guy. That's it. It's a brawler mecha fight, and that is literally New Century. It is a brawler mecha. It's a brawler animal mecha fight.
Yeah, so the Chaotic Century anime came with yet another reboot of the model kit line. This is one we refer to as NJR, or New Japanese Release, and these kits, you can still find some of these on Build in Japan. That's where your Gojos came from.
Yep.
So this was where the franchise finally got some level of popularity and staying power, and it's, again, where most of you probably associate the series with. What's really curious, though, is that Toonami was kind of unhinged when this came out, and so they decided to localize the sequel series called New Century Zero
First.
like 6 months before they localized Chaotic Century, the series that came before it in Japan. So people were already watching the broadcast version of New Century, and then Chaotic Century debuts like halfway through it, and they're like, well, this is kind of a step backwards. But in reality, it was intended to release the other way around, which is super confusing. But this is probably the most popular series, and I like it, but I'm torn in calling it like objectively good quality, because it's basically just one long tournament arc. Nothing really happens in this series. It's very light on plot.
And it ends on a cliffhanger, so there is a continuation storyline with Iron Bible talks about it that has them in the S class, and I'm like, we don't get anything of S class, which is apparently these ranks of Zoid fighters that are just leagues above everything else that we just saw this entire time. And for one thing, none of them show up when all this crap is going down. Like, none of them just show up and just like backhand the bad guys and just go, by the way, S class, and then walk off.
Yeah.
Like, I would have taken that. I would have absolutely loved to just see the Super Judge capsule just get blown out of the air, not by Berserk Fury, but by just random dude showing up in like a Gojulus. S class, good luck, and then walks off or something. And they're like, maybe, and then just watch them, just sorry. Get their butts kicked. Like
so New Century only had 26 episodes, whereas Chaotic Century had around 60. And so it does seem like a series that's kind of half finished. But it does have some cool moments. It introduces the proverbial cash cow of the entire franchise, which they decided to carry over into what I think we can all agree is the worst anime that they made. So who here has actually seen Fusers? Yeah, so
We're all sorry.
This series is probably responsible for the franchise failing in the U.S. So much so that it was canceled halfway through. And again, this is when Toonami was kind of unhinged and didn't really know what they were doing. And this series it's very cliche. It's very like, this is definitely a show made to sell toys kind of, and it has that very like mid-2000s shonen era vibe to it. But it's really silly and very gimmicky. And the product line that came out for this era is also incredibly gimmicky and not very successful. If you're likely to find a unbuilt Zoids kit in the US right now, it's likely to be one of these because they were not very successful. And funny enough, the episode that the last episode that aired where they canceled this series, I will never forget this because I was so mad as a kid, was the episode where the Energy Liger debuted.
And man, so you want to talk about actually a difficult kit to find. That Energy Liger is a pain. And I have both regular and the variant. And that variant thing is awesome looking because he's like got a blood red undertone to a lot of his colorations. And I'm like, I would prefer this, but then we also would have never gotten it anyways. It's like, and look how awesome this is. Well, we'll see you back to episode 1 tomorrow.
Yeah, the series did finish in Japan, and it does get kind of a little bit better towards the end. And there are some cool designs, like the new like rival, like the new replacement for like your archetypal dinosaur rival Zoid, like
Garayuki, right?
Yeah, that takes the place of like the Genosaur or the Berserk Fury for this series. Is really cool, but other than that, it doesn't really have a whole lot going for it. And that would be the end of Zoids in the U.S. for years, for more than a decade. That was the final nail in the coffin, and that coffin was well and truly sealed at this point. But thankfully, Zoids would continue in Japan with another anime called Genesis. Who here has seen this? Few people. I admittedly have not finished it. I've started this series about 3 times and not been able to actually finish it, but I think you have, right?
So I have finished it, and I'll admit it is one that it has a weird, like, story feel to it, because it almost kind of has that midpoint, not quite to season 2 of Chaotic, but more of how the season 1 part was a bit more kiddish, but it has the mature aspect in pieces. But the like Super Zoid metal thing that they really tried to focus hard on component of the series, I felt was both its biggest pro and con of the series, because it made for an odd time for it.
Yeah, so it has a very different character to it, a very different feel to the tone than any of the prior series do, which is to its benefit in some cases, but it's weird. It's a weird set for sure. And then that would be it for Zoids anime as well in Japan for a decade. We wouldn't get anything else for more than 10 years after this. This is like 2006 that this aired.
Yeah. But we did get the most amazing thing to come out to Zoids.
Oh my God, yes.
Which is the HMMs.
Yeah, so who here has built one of these?
Not yet.
Okay, all of you who have not raised your hand, you're missing out.
So I'll tell you, it's actually really funny that I went for a huge stage of building nothing but master models, and then I started going back into collecting the older kits, and I'd really forgotten that like I can bust out a classic kit in like 30 minutes, and then I like went back into a high-end master model, and I'm like, I'm working on this 8 hours later, still going, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, these are way more detailed.
Yeah, so Tomy, at this point, Tomy and Takara had merged. They did that, I think, in 2006 as well. And so the newly rebranded Takara Tomy would make a licensing deal with Kotobukiya, who is known for making high-end model kits, and they would make the HMM or high-end master model line. And these are exceptionally more detailed and highly articulated than your motorized kits.
If you think of it in the like Gundam grading scale, think of it basically as a master grade Gundam scale. It's not to perfect grade. I wouldn't say it's to that.
Somewhere in between.
There are some kits that I will admit are nearing a perfect grade level of complexity.
Yeah.
But they're like your special one-off ones. But
this one right here is between a master grade and a perfect grading, because that'll probably take you about 13 to 15 hours to build that. So they are quite, so if you break it down, they're also expensive. We did not have, so it's easy to get Gunpla in America because Bandai has US distribution they have an allocation for kits in the United States where you can buy them from stores that purchase them from Bandai. That was not the case with Kotobukiya and Zoids. They were impossible to get in the US, barring expensive import costs, until this year. So Kotobukiya announced they were going to be allocating Zoids for US distribution this year, which is super cool. The problem is they're all stuck in the ocean right now. So
we're in a ridiculous bad problem with shipping containers right now.
Yeah. So the whole shipping industry is backed up.
So if you want to like swim 20 miles off the coast and like take over one of these ships, you're golden. There's kits galore.
But they're still kind of expensive. This kit will probably run you between $60 and $80. But if you break that down into how many hours it takes to build it, you're getting like I said, 13 to 15 hours just building it. Never mind if you're like one of those expert model builders that goes through the extra mile to paint and detail and weather these things. You're definitely getting your money's worth out of it. We're going to save questions for the end because we have prizes to give out. And so they continue to make these to this day. In fact, this kit was released in 2020. So they've made these from 2006 all the way up until present, and they're still making them.
So unfortunately, the next part is one of the best and worst things that I feel happened to Zoids, which is Zoids Wild. So my thing is, I had the same thing when I started watching this because it goes from one of the. I honestly feel this is the worst series. Like I was gonna say Fusers, hands down, worst series overall of Zoids, and then this thing showed up, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm back into the early 2000s super childish kiddie mecha animes that are like the like non-mainstream knockoff series. It just felt like that because it's so kiddish. They have a scene where someone dies, and like 2 minutes later, someone's making a joke about something, and I'm like, we couldn't give at least a few moments of like, oh no, okay, well, yeah, gonna go rap about it.
Yeah,
God, I hate that guy.
So when they announced this in 2018, I like came unglued because it had been 12 years since we had anything for Zoids in the US. And so I was thrilled. I was like, oh my god, a new anime. But then we got the manga released online, and it's ugly. It's super ugly. And all the actual Zoids themselves are drawn very well, but all of the human characters and all the backgrounds are super ugly. And then we got this, which again, to your point, very goofy, not serious at all, very light on plot, more so even than New Century. And it got an English dub and a release on Netflix, which is probably how most of you watched it to your disappointment. And so it was kind of bittersweet because it's like, okay, cool, we got more Zoids, but it kind of isn't that great.
So my thing though is the change in the model kits was fun, and I felt a bit of disappointment with it, but I also had fun with the fact that the new kits really bring back the classic feel where we are now returning to motorized, but they have now done something that makes it like it takes 10 minutes to build an entire model kit, no matter which one from Zoids Wild, basically. None of them are on sprues anymore. They are already pre-cut out, so it is like a beginner model kit's dream. Because, I mean, you open it up, they are sorted out in a alphabetical order for how you build them, and it's 10 minutes to build one of their bigger Zoid kits. Because, I mean, it's hand for hand, like, walks you through building it. And
it's like building Legos. They're already pre-cut. And
my thing is, they are gorgeously detailed. So it's like, I can't be super angry with it, but I'm coming from the I want to build a master model, or even the classic model. And then I get this, and I'm like, I blinked and I finished this.
So I actually don't know which animation studio made Wild and its sequel that we're about to talk about, but I should probably look that up. But evidently, either they listened to feedback or this was all the plan from the beginning, because they made up for this. They made up for this big time. So who here has seen the sequel series to Zoids Wild, Zoids Wild 0? Okay, about 3 people.
So it is worth it.
So,
hands down, Wild 0, which is what we were talking about earlier, is probably now nearly top to chaotic. Like, it is one of the most amazing storyline and change that I've ever seen from a season 1 to, like, I can't even call it a season 2. It's not related directly. It's
they're
not even got all
completely
the
separate in lore. Yeah.
Same kits, but it does have a lot of the same kits overall. But I mean, it is one of the coolest
Yeah,
changes.
if you've been starved for like that authentic Zoids experience since the Toonami era, this is where you need to go. This wholeheartedly makes up for Wild, and it takes everything about Wild that worked from the model kit designs and makes it better. They basically took the existing model kits from the Wild line, made them edgier, more angry looking, and slapped a bunch of guns on them, and they look fantastic. Let's play that OP real quick.
Studio OLM.
Okay.
Thank you.
This series also has a fantastic. So you're gonna go home and watch that now, right?
Like, I will say, it is one of the greatest things, considering it really has been just so long since we've gotten that major anime. And with Wild, like, I mean, I was depressed after watching only the first half of Wild. I couldn't do it. I could not get through the rest of the series because it was too much. And then Zero showed up, because I actually was the same thing as probably a lot of you guys were. Wild ruined it for me. Like, the Wild Zero, there's no way you can make this good. And he was like, no, watch this. And I then proceeded to marathon nearly the entire series over the next weekend. And it was just like, it just keeps getting better as it goes. It is glorious.
Yeah, something really funny as well. That giant dinosaur that he's fighting right there at the very end. There's something really wonky with the scale of the Zoids in this series. So they are scaled down significantly compared to the classic series. So the classic series, they're as tall as a building. You could fit that Liger in this room easily. Like, he could crawl in through the door and fit in this room. And so that giant Tyranno there is about to scale with a classic Zoid, like a Command Wolf. It's really funny.
So it's like, and that's one of the things that's kind of funny when you look at the model kits, because the model kits are at odd scales because they're also trying to not make the model kit look dwarf.
They scaled up the model kits as a result, yeah.
If any of you have seen the Gachapon things, like, that would be the size of them compared to a regular model kit, technically.
Yeah.
But, because when you go with Wild, the kids are riding the Zoids on, like, their neck. So it's like, if you think this is a, like, 11-year-old kid, I mean, yeah, it would fit, like, from this side of the room to here is the full Zoid.
Oh.
And then Wild Zero, like, beefs them up, not a massive amount, but now they're probably more so the length of, like, about half of this room.
Yeah,
a little bit more.
Not to mention, if you were upset by the fact that, like, the characters in Wild were, like, riding on the back of the Zoids and how silly that was, they fixed that in Zero.
Yeah,
they fixed that in Zero.
So it's actually still, like, they get onto the back of it in the same spot, but it now, like, then, like, has this, like, hologram technology, like, hard light construct that goes around them, and then it melds into the Zoid. So it's still goofy, but it makes more sense than we're shooting laser beams and rockets at each other and we are getting hit, and this 12-year-old is not being knocked off this and then just being just obliterated.
Yeah. So the Wild Zero finished its broadcast run in summer of last year, and very quickly after that we got another announcement for another series after that, which they were going to call Zoids Wild Senki. And then this came out, and it was not what we expected. It was not actually a full-length series with, like, full-length episodes. It's actually just a series of short animations meant to kind of tie in with the model kit line.
But holy cow, are they not some of the most gorgeous, like, 5-minute fight scenes of, like, not even just 1v1 fights. I mean, there's some, like, here's a section of this comic book that we pulled out of this and just movie quality animated it into this 5-minute fight scene. And I mean, it is some of the prettiest looking stuff you'll see, but I'll tell you, you want more. Like, you want the rest of what's not happening in this one scene, but it is gorgeous looking.
So yeah, the animation is fantastic, and we also get a couple of new designs like this right here, the Burning Liger, which I'm not 100% sold on, but it does look pretty cool. And that's kind of the state of things right now in Japan. There hasn't been an announcement for another series to continue where Wild Zero left off. I'd hope they do another serious and more darker tone series like Wild Zero and continue striking while the iron's hot. The HMM model kit line is going strong. And earlier this year, they finally adapted some of the Zoids Wild kits by Hasbro again in English. And Hasbro has since completely dropped this line. Those of you that follow, like, the Hasbro Pulse thing for, like, Transformers and stuff, they just had their convention, like, this past week and didn't announce a single thing for Zoids. So I think once again, for like the 5th time, Zoids is well and truly dead in America. But if you guys want to relive your favorite experiences with the series and kind of get back into it, highly recommend watching Wild Zero. And if you want to get into model kits, we highly recommend the kits that are in production right now, especially the HMM. So we did talk about games already at the beginning a little bit, but I wanted to kind of show this off just to kind of show the variety of games that exist. This is actually my personal collection. And
This is the only one that matters.
not true. Not true.
That's the only one we played.
So go to Versus 3 real quick. Right above it with the Liger Phoenix. Yeah, so that one right there on the right is the 3rd game in that trilogy. You should that's worth buying a Japanese GameCube for. I'm telling you, it's that.
It is a
good.
lot of fun. I'll admit, that one's a lot of fun.
So with that out of the way, we have probably exactly as much time as we wanted to do questions, right?
Yeah.
So what we wanted,
So we briefly explained it, but I've seen some new people come in, so let's do
yeah.
the explanation.
So what we want to do is we have 3 prizes to give away here. So from the Hasbro Zoids Wild line, which again is probably going to be out of production soon, we have the localization of the Spy Death Zoid called Phobia in English, which is a quick little kit, but it's really, really awesome. I like it a lot. I've got that one in my personal collection. And then we have a slightly more high-end one. This one was the Ganon toys in Japanese, and now it's called Tanks for whatever reason. A really cool Tortoisoid that has a cannon embedded inside of it, and its shell opens up to reveal the cannon. It's really cool. And then finally, the grand prize, we have the brand new, this just released like a month ago, high-end master model Rev Raptor. This is a great starting kit for anybody that's not built an HMM before. And this is actually coming out of my personal collection because I was not able to find another one in time for this panel. So I will happily buy this again if I can give somebody their first experience building an HMM.
And I'll tell you, this thing is like, you want to talk about one of the most wanted Zoids to get an HMM. I mean, people have been wanting this thing for years.
The prototype they showed off like 2 years ago, and they finally got it into production this past month. We're also getting an accessory kit for this, which is the little pile driver weapon that it has on its shoulder, so you'll be able to pick that up too. Also, one thing I love about the HMMs is all of the box art is either a reference to the anime or a reference to the battle story. So there's an illustration somewhere of this Blade Liger running away from Rev Raptors from like 1983, or 1999, I guess in that case, because when the Blade Liger came out. But it's all a bunch of really cheeky references. You said you had the Death Stinger, right?
I've got the ZS on order.
Oh, that doesn't count. That's a bootleg. no. The ZA is. The ZS is official. Yeah, you're right. You're good. So what we want to do to give these away is we just want some engagement from you guys, just to ask some questions. So we want to form a single file line up here by this tripod, and you guys will just kind of ask whatever questions you want, anything you're curious about, anything you want us to kind of extrapolate on, and then give us your name. We're going to write it on the back of one of these tickets and put it in this non-specific anime chalice. And then
We're bribing you. We're bribing you to talk to us. That's what's happening.
And then we'll draw them at the end randomly to give away these 3 kits. Do you want to do me the honor of writing them down?
Yeah, right.
I wonder if it makes your dreams come true.
Not the way you think.
I mean, if your dream is to own, if your dream is to own a toy, then yes, it does make your dreams come true. Okay, ready?
Hurt my tendons again.
Move the non-specific shells closer to you. So we have approximately 20 minutes to do this, which is pretty good, I do admit. Okay, ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, go ahead, sir. What is your name and what is your question?
My name is Cody.
Okay, Cody.
My question is, where can I get my hands on Chaotic Century and New Century so I can rewatch them?
Oh, that is a great question that comes up all the time online, and the tough answer to that is that they are not licensed by any official streaming sites. So there is not a site that has them officially. You're looking at an unofficial, like basically a pirated site, more or less.
Are we allowed to legally say where to acquire them?
I don't see why not.
So my go-to for honestly anime in general, just especially since it is so ridiculous to watch anime now, to at least get an idea, is Go Anime. So it unfortunately like consistently changes its URL, but you can just search Go Anime, and it has everything you can pretty well imagine in pretty good quality. It is still streaming, not legal, but it is a great place to get older stuff that we have no way of getting.
Yeah,
I'll admit that part.
there is also an unofficial Blu-ray production of Chaotic Century that I did not consciously buy. My brother gifted it to me, and it is pretty good quality. And if you think about it, so if you have like one of those TVs that like smooths things out, like enhances frame rate and stuff, all of the actual Zoids animation is CGI. So it's like smoothed out and looks great even on a modern TV. So that you can find that online for pretty cheap. It's like a fan reproduction of Chaotic Century on Blu-ray.
Yes.
Okay, Fogle, Fogle. 2 questions. The first one's kind of short. Do you need to watch Wilds to watch Wild Zero?
Absolutely not.
Heck
Cool.
no.
So it
Do
is.
not watch Wild. That's
They
the
are
answer. Wild Zero only happened.
They are only loosely connected, and by loosely I mean it's some of the same Zoids initially before they get like militarized. Wild Zero. This is not a spoiler because it's explained in the first episode, but Wild Zero doesn't take place on Planet Z. It takes place on Earth. And
Because of shenanigans and time travels and wormholes.
yeah, more or less, you'll see this at the very, 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 very beginning of the series. It's the very first thing they show you, so it's not a spoiler. But Zoids more or less like warp gate into Earth, and there's some like shenanigans that happen with like atmospheric changes, and they basically go berserk and like just wipe out a lot of
Humanity.
civilization, and it basically causes this alternate history situation where we coexist with Zoids on Earth, and it's really cool.
Actual question. What's been your favorite model to build?
Oh man, I think mine is probably either the HMM Lightning Sykes or the HMM Cannon Tortoise. I have like 3 HMM Blade Ligers because that's my favorite Zoid, but there are some tedious aspects to it, such as the feet. Like every single toe is like a clamshell that fits together in 2 halves, and you got to do it with every single toe. But the Cannon Tortoise, even though it's small, is designed so cool because it has like little things that flap out on the side for like troops to deploy out of, and it has like an articulated turret. It's so
We don't have
cool.
time to do this much discussion with that much of a line.
Yeah, we'll probably.
Sorry, I was just
cut it
like,
out.
I can see this going. So mine is the Crystal Gojulus, which is the absolutely white, clear Gojulus, which is one of my ones I got from Philippines, and it's great. And
It's also worth a fat stack of
Yeah.
money too.
Yes.
Hey, I'm Kendall. So, what about building a Zoids model feels better overall for you than other models, Gundam or anything like that? What's particular about building up the Zoids that's like, okay, I'm in there?
That's a great question. I think that the HMMs are comparable to Gunpla, so there's not a whole lot of things that are particularly unique that stand out to me. It's more of just of a love for Zoids that draws me to them. But also, there's a certain asymmetry with how a lot of the pieces are built that makes it difficult to make mistakes. And so there's not a lot of pieces that are mirrored. There's a lot of pieces that are unique, and that prevents you from accidentally snapping the wrong piece in and stuff like that. And I think that's a good design overall.
Yeah. Same for me is once HMM got released, it rivaled so much the complexity with Gundams that it's just from my desire for, I really like this version of Zoids, and I do also collect Gunplas, so I've got my specifics on both. So it's just really if you're a big Gunpla fan, hands down I say grab an HMM, because you'll have a lot of similarities to your build process, versus like if you're new, find one of the older kits or the Americanized kits that we got here, the smaller one.
I would definitely recommend starting with one this size as well, because before shipping, this is about like $40. If you want to get it quick, you're probably paying like DHL shipping, which is pretty expensive, but these are less expensive than like the bigger kits, like the Blade Liker and the Death Stinger and all that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
What are your opinions on the...
What's your name?
Oh, sorry. James Small.
James, okay.
What are your opinions on the Supernova kits?
So I have a very controversial opinion on unofficial kits, especially because there are so many known bootlegs of HMMs. I like the Death Stinger and the so actually let me take it back. The Genesis kits are great because there's not an existing licensing agreement with Kotobukiya to make Genesis kits. So if you're getting like a Supernova Murasame Liger or one of those, go for it. But I'm not as big of a fan of the ZA Death Stinger because it's not official, and I feel like it's kind of a slap in the face to Koto, who has brought us so many great kits, including a Death Stinger. Even though the ZA version has made improvements on it, it's not an official kit, so I really can't recommend that one as much. But for the Genesis ones, I say, you've built some of them, right? Okay.
I haven't got any of those ones. I never got around to them.
Okay.
Yes.
William,
And William, what is your question?
for the HMMs, what is a kit that you would like to see them come out with?
Koenig Wolf, hands down. Koenig Wolf and the three tigers from the Battle Story, the Fuses era of the Battle Story, the Brass Style Tiger, the Race Tiger, and the Witz Tiger.
Death Sword, hands down. Death
Yeah,
Sword.
that's right.
Yes.
My name is Sadman. And what I like to do is like paint and detail models. What would be a good paint to use for Zoids in their type of
Oh
body?
man, that is probably a better question to ask in the Discord or on the Zoids Collectors group, because I personally have not custom painted any Zoids, but there are some subject matter experts in that group that have made some incredible customs.
Yeah, do
And-
the Facebook group for Zoids builders, hands down. Like I was saying earlier, they will spend all day. If you want to keep talking, they will keep talking to you about it. Like they will talk your ear off when it comes to painting. They will tell you exactly which ones. They'll give you links to what to do. Because I was talking about one of my older kits, that yellow, that I got from an order, and I had like 6 people going, here's these different products to use, and they're really, really helpful. So that'd be your best one, because I also
Yeah, and
modded it.
ask for a link to the Discord too, because you can have like organic discussions with them in real time, and they'll walk you through stuff.
Robert, it's less of a question, it's more of a piece of trivia. OLM, Oriental Light and Magic, was the studios that made Wild. They also made Super Robot Wars, Generation Divine Wars.
Okay, great. That is awesome. But no question there, right? Just that clarification.
The only question would be, where can I find them in the dealer's room? But I suspect the answer is not.
You may find.
You'll find a couple HMMs.
You may
your best
find
bet.
a
You probably wouldn't find an old one.
you may find a Gunpla dealer that has 1 or 2 if you're lucky. Because I bought some from here in years past, but this year might be uniquely different because of the situation we're in.
I saw 3 in the dealer's room.
Where?
You go to the very back where.
What is your name? What is your question?
Jean-Paul. When it comes to collections, most people have a flagship piece, a crown jewel. As major collectors, what is your crown jewel of your collection?
So crown jewel, and how expensive is it, or as much as our personal favorite?
It's something like if you were to put it on a pedestal, it would be on the top pedestal.
So
You have some high roll kits compared to me.
So I also have a couple of kits coming in that will change this answer eventually. But mine would be either the Crystal Gogulus, just because it's a pain in the butt to get, or I actually finally looked into an Ultrasaurus. And that thing is gorgeous and has 8 pilots in it. And it is a beast. It is this big.
Yeah.
It is a massive thing, and I love it.
Mine is either my HMM Leon Blade Liger, or it is my my OER Zoidzilla Gogulus, which is in pretty good condition. So, but yeah, that's a great question as well.
We got 11 minutes.
Okay, we're gonna cut this off at exactly 12:25, so we have some minutes to give out the prizes. Yeah. Go ahead. What's your name? What's your question?
My name's Ray. I have more of a lore question. So I've only watched the Future Century Zoids. In that show, it only seemed like the Liger Zero or the White Liger was sentient. But are all Ligers, all Zoids sentient, or
Depends on what you're watching.
Depends
So
on
that
what you're
answer
watching.
literally depends on what you're watching.
So the anime puts more emphasis on the Zoids being living creatures and having agency and sentience than the lore does. Because the battle story portrays them more as war machines than living creatures. Because most of the Zoids, the newer, cooler ones, they always use the vocabulary of this was developed by the Helix Republic. This was built by the Gylos Empire. Whereas in the anime,
The Zoids Core's introduction is where a lot of them get their sentience, is when they started building that in. Genesis was also really big about giving them more of a sentience. So yeah, your animes are a lot bigger on that, and then your manga's dedicated to those types of stories where that. But yeah, any of the older ones involving the wars are a lot less of a actual sentience as much as just a relationship between a pilot and its machine. Yeah, so it's like maybe a Ghost in the Machine concept to it, but not quite to the point of like this thing is listening to you. Physically listen to you.
Until we get to Wild, and then it's literally just Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, battling animals, more or less. Hello, Heather.
Hey, and my question was, what tools do you use to put together the kits? I have some basic nippers and pliers, and I was wondering, would I need anything else if I wanted to get started?
Yeah, that's probably all that you need. I also have some X-Acto knife, a filer to file down some of the nubs, and I do have some modeling cement that I've had to use a couple times on pieces that just absolutely refuse to stay together.
But as far as snippers go, God hand. Like, you will pay for it, but it is one of the, like, it will cut plastic like butter. It will also cut plastic like butter. So I actually almost cut one of my Command Wolf's heads in half because I sneezed while cutting it, and it went from sprue to jaw. And I was like, huh? Oh. And luckily it didn't go, like, it didn't cut enough of it, but like it is there if I look for it. It will like it's nothing. So be very careful with it. But God hand snippers are one of the best tools you can use for it.
All right, we have like 3 minutes left, which is hopefully enough for the next 2 or 3 people. What is your name? What is your question?
Ro, my question is, in the Zoid games, have you ever basically not make fun of, but trick your friends, whoever you're playing with? Like, you could use the biggest Zoid you want. I'll use the smallest Zoid, but they do not know you equip the 3 best items onto it, like Zoid Battle Legend, the 3 Ultra Z's.
I haven't done that, but I think I had a friend where I tricked him into using a boss Zoid, and I used the Liger Zero Phoenix, which is the most busted Zoid in that game.
Make sure to find them inside the city, and your boss Zoid will glitch into the buildings and be unable to move. That is also one of the easiest ways to beat that game against your bigger guys, is walk the bad guy into the city because their buildings are not destructible.
Yeah.
So they will just sit there and so you just walk around behind it and just destroy it.
One thing about Zoids Battle Legends is the world records holder for the speed run is in the Discord, and I'm getting ready to do an interview with him on the channel soon.
Oh,
really looking forward to that.
So we're only going to have enough time for 2 more questions. I'm sorry, guys, we're just running out of time.
Yep, 2 more, and then we gotta cut it off. We gotta cut off the last 3. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
All right. Name's Jarvis.
Okay.
It's more of a general question. I think I may have missed this early in the panel, but I kind of get a general reason to why not many people like Zoids Wild, but I kind of want it in your opinion why do you guys think like Zoids Wild?
Why people don't like Wild?
Well, as an adult, I think we have a different opinion than if you came in, like, if you're a parent showing your kid,
right.
I feel Wild wouldn't be a terrible one to introduce them on, because if they're wanting a more kiddish mecha, it's got that, hands down.
I have actually a very long-winded explanation for this we can probably talk about outside the panel if you want, but I think the short answer is it wasn't what we wanted. Okay. We wanted, after New Century and Fusers, we wanted a more dark, serious storyline, something more melodramatic and akin to a Gundam type storyline, which is a story about war, and that wasn't what the adult fans got, and that was just kind of disappointing in that way. But it also just, again, just the lack of seriousness in the tone just really kind of hindered it in that way.
Okay.
My name's Brian Barnhill.
All right, Brian.
So, the first 2 kits I ever got were a Cannon Tortoise and a Buster Eagle. They were at Dollar General. Like,
which Dollar General, and do you ever see them again? Because I want to buy a Dollar General's like Zoid and watch what happens when I
7.
Yeah.
And this is in South Carolina. And like, why would my...
Do you have the receipt? Because I want to see a receipt that says Dollar General Zoids of any definition. Because that just sounds.
They had like a few models, and it was weird.
That's.
Is that your question? Is just why?
Because the import problems with them and the cost.
Was that recently?
No. This like 20 years ago.
Oh, those were probably the Hasbro ones. They were localized and released in the US.
Yeah.
And so they were probably clearance from somewhere like Toys R Us. And again, the Buster Eagle is Fuser's era, which is the era that did the worst. So they might have just been on clearance at that point and getting ready to push them out the door.
My favorite Liger Zero.
Mine is probably Panzer, but I really love Zero X as well, which only exists in the lore of the video games.
See, I was going to say Zero X if given as extended, or Liger the Arthur, which we had zero discussion on, and there's too much to discuss to include Liger the Arthur. But Liger the Arthur is an awesome design too.
All right, who wants to win a Zoid? So, first of all, for the Zoids Wild Hasbro Phobia, we have
Broken it. Jarvis.
Hey! This is definitely one of my favorite ones from the Watt line. It's got the cute-haired spider girl. All right, for the Zoids Wild Hasbro tanks or Ganon toys, we have
Kinto. And now I have the reveal for the guy that's going to get beaten up when he
yeah, keep this close. So, for the winner of the brand new released Kotobukiya high-end master model Rev Raptor, we have
giving you an early fate draw.
Oh boy.
So it's your fault.
Your name's not in there, Shane.
I know it's not. My question would have been.
Hey, don't steal my
I
question.
have awful handwriting. Oh man, James Small on Supernova.
Right. Now you get to build a real Zoid.
You have to deal with the real.
Congratulations to you. Thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
So, Jay, what hotel are you staying?